All right, what's good, gamers? What's good? My name is Dr. Ryan Charles, Psych Sensei, and welcome to the stream, baby. Happy Friday. Today, we're finishing up the article we started on Tuesday, talking about comms and the types of comms between novices and pros in CSGO. So hopefully this can help you with your comms, or use better comms, or know what comms you're using that are bad. But if you want to learn more about me and what I do, and all that kind of stuff, want all the resources, please visit my website, psychsensei.com. There you can get all the resources. You can get my LinkedIn, my Twitter, my Instagram, my Facebook, my YouTube, my TikTok, all of it there. I try to drop 2 pieces of content for funsies and then 2 pieces of content for realsies. So follow me there. And also, while you're at my website, if you want to learn what your win condition is, you want to learn how to be a better communicator, you want to be just a better player, person, all of it, fill out a free consultation form, baby, and you and I can sit down, figure out what's kind of going on, where you want to go, and maybe plan how to get there. So visit my website, psychsensei.com. All right. As always, this is a conversation. This is a discussion. This is whatever you want it to be. Please distract me if you want to talk about something else. But let's jump into this thing, baby. All right, so last week, Tuesday, we figured out all the nitty-gritty parts, and right now we're just going to go through the discussion and take away all the findings, which I'm super stoked about. Oh, this is what I wanted. Okay, this is the bee's knees. Emotional motivation. Okay, this is what I wanted. All right, let's go. All right. This study explored the differences in between round communication characteristics, content, frequency, pace, and distribution between expert and non-expert teams, and how these characteristics vary following winnings versus losing rounds. That's so sick. Content, frequency, pace, distribution between expert and non-expert teams, and how they're affected by winning and losing. The findings reveal that expert teams exhibit distinct communication patterns compared to non-expert teams, emphasizing strategic focus, adaptability, and efficient coordination. Woo! Which means, I'm guessing, that the non-expert teams focus on feeling bad. Okay. All right. Communication, dimension, frequency, and pace. Yo, thanks for the follow, baby. I think I say this right. Rasen Val? What's good, brother? What's good? Nothing much. Just chilling. Feeling even better now. How you doing, my friend? How you doing? Welcome to the stream. If you want to know esports psychology questions for yourself or how to get better, you let me know. It's a private show now. Woohoo! Okay. All right. Communication dimensions, frequency, and pace. Expert teams engage in more frequent and faster-paced communications during the in-between rounds periods than non-expert teams. The difference in communication frequency represents a medium to large effect size, suggesting a reliable, practical advantage in expert teams' time utilization. I was on the Cardinal roster last semester, so you had to give me a follow. Oh! Yet, well, technically you didn't have to give me a follow, but I appreciate the follow, my friend. I appreciate it. Where you at now, man? Where you at now? Where are you at? You still play Val? I hope you do. Okay. Faster paced communication than non-experts. You know, the other thing that I think the difference between I'll still play Val, but didn't want to play Collegiate anymore. Aw, so fun. Please cheer for us, though. We are playing tomorrow. We're playing tomorrow. I believe 12 or 3 or 1 or something. We're playing tomorrow. So hopefully send us your energy. The thing I'm thinking about, though, is I think the reason why more professional teams or more, what they say, expert teams can talk faster is because they have a higher level of knowledge of the game So they focus on higher order level things, and they don't need to talk about other things or more explain things. They can just say what they want, general ideas, and keep communicating quickly because everyone's on that same level. Versus, I'm guessing if you have a less experienced team, you probably need to take a longer period of time explaining things or being super low or spending time utilizing low context communication patterns, or like what I say is what I mean. I need you to do these things. I need you to flash here. I need you to run here. Versus like, we're going to do this. This is what's happening, and then play. Okay. Expert teams spend approximately of the 15 between rounds. Expert teams spend approximately of the there it is. Spend approximately 10.1 seconds of the 15 seconds round period communicating, compared to 8.3 seconds for non-expert teams. I wonder if the non-expert teams also are just like sad. And they don't want to talk to, like, okay, we're doing this now. Okay, why don't we do it? Because we suck. Okay, moving on by. It's interesting. The 1.8 second difference is consistent and meaningful because it fails crossing the 0 point when taking the 95% CI into consideration. Specifically, expert players use 34.6% more verbal communication statements and had a 29.4 higher word, I believe that's speed, compared with non-expert players. The larger effect size in speed, what's BR? Okay. Indicates substantial practical differences in communications efficiency. The particular narrow CI for WPS suggests that this is the most reliable differences in communication pace. Expert teams' higher pace demonstrates their consistently superior ability to convey information within the limited between round time interface. These findings align with previous research indicating that frequent, concise, and act-orientated or action-orientated communication is characteristic of successful sport teams. Yup. I think that's really important to say, because like, if you're able to talk a lot concisely, so your message is really packed with a lot of information, and it's action based instead of avoidance based or emotional based, you can probably talk a lot about what you want to do in the round, not how it felt and why it was bad. So, makes sense. And it's crucial for maintaining team cohesion and optimal performance in high pressure situations. When I talk about team cohesion, that's probably like how they want to play together and be able to execute a play as a team. That's what I'm thinking. Versus like the vibes of the team. Okay, communication context. Analysis of communication context revealed that expert players use significantly more act-orientated, fact-orientated, and emo statements than non-expert players. I didn't think they were going to use more emo statements. I didn't think they're going to use more emo statements, emotional or motivational statements. Maybe they're more motivational versus emotional. You know, like, I like this, way to go, we're shitting on them, versus like, oh, that sucked, I feel bad, I'm so terrible. That's what I'm thinking. Expert players use more act, fact, and emo statements than non-players. The largest effect is observed in act statements, representing a large and reliable practical difference in strategic communication. Medium effect sizes were found for emo statements and act statements. Okay, so it's still valid. With narrow CIs indicating consistent and meaningful differences in team support and coordination. The smaller effect size for fact statements and its CI crossing 0 suggests that this difference may not be practically significant. Act statements. Acknowledgement that this is happening is where they are. Okay? I like that. I like that. Okay. Expert teams focus on strategic deliberations and psychological supports, which may likely enhance their adaptability and strategic agility. What? I like this. Psychological support. This is key. I think, honestly, if you had a team and you're going to focus on building comms, I think those two things, strategic stuff or tactics of what you want to do, what the enemy's team is doing, how you want to play, how you want to counter them, the strategic part with the support of picking each other up or encouraging each other or making sure that you're focused on directing people's behaviors and thoughts to do the thing that you want them to do. I think those two pieces of comms are more important than anything else. Because if we're talking about, and I'm talking about like these strategic deliberations, what I'm talking about there is like what you want to do into the future. Sure, you can acknowledge in the past of like, oh, they're doing this to us, they're stopping us this way. That's fine. That's great, actually. I'm thinking though, if it's, oh, focus too much on the past, or I'm playing so bad, or they're shitting on me in this position, or they're always just killing me in this position, then that doesn't really help. But if there's a, they're doing this, we need to do this instead, I think that's so much more helpful. Right. The emphasis on act and fact statements illustrates how expertise... Whoa! Whoa. The emphasis on act and fact statements illustrates how expert teams actively engage in coordinating tasks and sharing vital information, contributing to the development of team-shared mental models, crucial for coordinated act or actions. I like this. So when you really think about it, it's really interesting, because from this perspective, what I'm thinking about is, yes, emotions are important, but sometimes emotions may distract you from focusing on the game or the things that are happening in front of you. So instead of focusing on the feelings, maybe focus on the facts and being objective in what you want to do. Because yes, it is frustrating when they stop you from doing the thing that you want to do, or they're just outplaying you. That's super frustrating. At the same time, if you get carried away by the emotions, you may not be able to see past them. You know what I mean? And this happens all the time. I don't think that getting distracted by your emotions is just a in-game tilt thing. That's like a life thing too. You know what I mean? Like how often in conversations when someone says something, you get attached to a singular word, or you hear them say a phrase that you don't agree with, so you just listen to that phrase and you don't hear the rest of their statement, and then you react super emotionally or hurt or defensive, but that's not the message, but you just got baited by the tone or the words. You know what I mean? So being emotional and having the emotions get to you, even in a conversation, not even just like game stuff. In contrast, non-expert players use significantly more NTS. What is NTS here? Non-task. Non-task related statements. That's funny. Okay, with large negative effect size representing a substantial and reliable practical difference, the narrow CI indicates a consistently large advantage in expert teams' ability to maintain task-focused communication during critical between-round periods. This divergence suggests that non-expert teams may have difficulty maintaining collective processes in high-pressure environments, potentially due to limited experience in managing stress and sustaining strategic focus. Yep. That's it right there, baby. That is it right there. So, if this is true, what I'm thinking about is if so what this is saying is that stress makes you stupid. Pros or more expert players have better abilities to manage high pressure situations or have been exposed to high pressure situations consistently or in general. And so they're better able to manage themselves and guide their mind past the emotions or the other distractions and instead focus on what they want to do in the game or the next few rounds. Sequential rounds? But they're able to push past this feeling and not be distracted by the emotions or the stress or the pressure, and able to focus on the game in front of them and communicate what they want to do without being frustrated or stressed or upset about how the round went or the play. I mean, they may be upset or whatever, but they do not let it affect them the way that non-experts do. Makes sense. Adaptability based on round outcome. Contrary to our initial assumption, the study found that expert teams adjust their communication content dynamically based on round outcomes. Following wins, expert players increase their use of emo and fact statements, potentially to reinforce morale and consolidate strategic understanding. Good shit! Way to go! They're doing this! They're freaking dogs! Like, I can see that. Makes sense. Okay, here's the kicker, though. After losses, they focus more on act-oriented communication, likely to strategize and adapt to the changing game dynamics. Yes. So it seems like when they win rounds, they use their emotions to keep moving forward, but when they lose rounds, they focus on objective actions to get them closer or back into the game. This adaptability suggests that expert teams possess dynamic team shared mental models, allowing them to modify their communication strategies to suit immediate context and maintain effective coordination under varying conditions. Non-expert teams, however, showed less adaptability in communication patterns following different round outcomes, which may reflect less developed team shared mental models and a reduced capacity to adjust strategies effectively in response to game dynamics. Makes sense to me. Communication distribution. While both expert and non-expert teams showed similar patterns in the distribution of a communication among team members, this was the primary contributor in expert team accounted. Oh my god. With the primary contributor in expert teams accounted for 52.9 of the team statements, while in non-expert teams, this figure was 58.3. Expert teams maintain higher overall communication volumes. This indicates that expert teams not only distribute communication responsibilities similarly, but also engage more extensively in communication, enhancing their collective coordination and performance. Okay. With primary contributor. Okay. Okay. They talk more. They distribute communication, but also engage more in communication. I wonder too if the difference between communication volume and distribution between expert teams and non-expert teams also comes down to being able to know what they're communicating, why they're communicating, and like how dense their communication is versus non-experts just like yapping. Okay, sequential content analysis. Sequential analysis of communication patterns revealed that expert teams frequently transition between act-to-act statements and balance these with emotional and act statements. This indicates that expert players effectively integrate different types of communication to facilitate strategic coordination and maintain team cohesion. This frequent transition among act emotions and fact statements suggests that expert teams actively use information to guide acts, address unks or unknowns, and reinforce shared understandings, contributing to the development and maintenance of team shared mental models. Team shared mental models, all that is do we know how to play the game together? That's it. Do we have an idea of how to play the game similarly, understand the same roles and function of the roles that we can expect so we can play and not talk? But yeah. All right. In contrast, non-expert teams exhibited more transition between NTS, which is non-tasks, nothing, between non-task and emotional statements, indicating a greater focus on off-topic or emotional content rather than task-oriented communication. This pattern may hinder their ability to maintain strategic focus and translate knowledge into coordinated strategies in higher pressure environments. However, future research would need to establish definitive conclusions about the relationship between communication patterns and performance under pressure. All right, if you really think about this too, this also relates back to cognitive battery. And what I mean by that is like, if someone can be super efficient in their cognitive battery, that means that they're able to communicate efficiently and pass their messages and receive their messages clearly to their teammates. Because if, for example, you do not have efficient cognitive battery, your cognitive battery is now focused on emotional regulation, stress management, planning, strategy, talk, all of these things. But the more that you practice this, the higher, more efficient your communication, the more higher efficient your game knowledge or experience in the game is. Now you don't have to focus on those skills because it's already automatic and you've practiced them so much that you don't need to think about them anymore. For example, like aiming, maybe you don't need to think about it because your aim is just crispy, or you don't need to think about where people are going to be, or you don't need to think about where your teammates are going to be because you've played with them and you've had scrims and you've had times to practice different types of plays or different types of defaults where you already know where they're going to be. So I'm thinking too, the way that mental models or the shared mental model becomes more embedded in the team is with experience, knowledge of playing together. Thus, you become more efficient at it because you don't need to think about it. Thus, your cognitive battery can be more efficient, and you win more games. That's what I'm thinking. It's like a circle. All right, practical implications and contributions to the team shared mental model framework. The findings extend the team shared mental model framework by demonstrating how specific communication characteristics facilitate the development and maintenance of shared mental models in esport teams. The higher frequency of act-oriented and fact statements among expert teams supports team shared mental model theory, emphasis on shared tactical understanding and complementary role-specific knowledge. Because if they're talking about actions and how they want to play together, and they're talking about different factors that they see, of course they're going to be able to share their knowledge and then play together. The adaptability of expert team in adjusting communication content based on round outcomes illustrate the dynamic nature of team shared mental models in facilitating effective coordination under varying conditions. The large and very large effect size obtained for communication pace and act statements suggests that these are key areas in training interventions. Interesting. But what do you mean? I think the reason why I think it would be a mistake then to, in general, if, for example, if they're, I have to read on, but I'm thinking if they're going to try to just increase the pace of talking, the pace of talking might just be an indication of how efficient they're being instead of the thing that we're trying to train. The practical significance of these differences indicate that focusing training on increasing communication pace and strategy, and increasing communication pace and strategic act statements can yield meaningful improvements in team performance. In contrast, the smaller effects in communication distribution suggest that the rigid role-based communication protocols may be less critical for team development. Ooh. Okay. At the same time, what I'm thinking about when they say this, role-based communication, role-based communication protocols may be less critical for team development. I might push back a little bit on that. I think maybe for expert teams, sure. I think maybe though for non-expert teams, it might be important to create rigid role-based communication as a starting point because they're going to need to establish what the norm is, or what does my perspective and my role need to be successful. And then if I have mastery of my role, then now I can begin thinking of other roles and their perspective because I have a firm foundation in my own. So now that I have a firm foundation in my own role, I know how to play the game from my perspective. I know the positions from my perspective. I know what to look out for my perspective. And so once I master that, now I can add another thing. Chunking of information, making the mental model bigger. So yes, I do agree. I think for expert teams, this is maybe not so great, but I think for teams that are still forming, non-expert teams, they need to have a base of knowledge to ground them to learn other pieces of knowledge from. All right, from a practical standpoint, these insights translate into actionable strategies for esports training and coaching. Coaches and team leaders should encourage players to engage in frequent, concise, and act-orientation communication that promotes strategic content while also fostering emotional support to maintain team morale and cohesion. So, sure, infrequent, concise, and act-oriented communication that promotes strategic content while fostering emotional support within the team. I agree. Here's the thing, though. I think if I was going to emphasize something more, I would emphasize the act-orientated stuff first. And the reason why I would encourage the act-orientated stuff first is because it's hard to train conciseness if I don't know what you want me to do. But if we focus on act-based communication, I know what you want to do. I have an idea of what the team might want to do, what the enemy is doing, and now I can, with this act information, figure out how I want to be and act and respond, or what my teammates want from me. And if we focus on that, now we're building communication relationship, which increases the likelihood that our things will be more concise, more frequent with each other than just focusing on the conciseness of frequency, because the content is the act versus the most important thing is the conciseness or the frequency of the messages, in my opinion. Okay. Developing explicit protocols for between round communication that balance tactical and social emotional content can enhance strategic coordination and adaptability. Implementing exercises that build both shared knowledge of team strategies and role specific skills can further develop team cognitive alignment. Yes, and team cognitive alignment is a shared mental model. All right, limitations. Yeah, I like this. Okay, let me see if I can kind of explain what I was thinking about from this article. Okay, so a team shared mental model is what they talked about, right? So team shared mental model. TSMM. All this is, so a mental model, right? It is basically an understanding a mental. Okay, so let's start with mental. So a mental model literally is this is you. Okay. And it's literally okay. For example, the mental model of like car. Okay, when you think of a car, you're thinking the mental model is literally your mental representation and understanding of car. So you might think, okay, car's got 2 wheels. It's got a sick bumper. It's got like this thing. It's got like this thing, and someone sits here. It's got windows. It's a sick car, isn't it? Okay, that's car, right? Now, when you talk about a team shared mental model, now you're thinking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, maybe. And together, that's real goes. And together, they think about car. Okay? And this is where things get tricky. Because car to someone could look like this one. For example, now all these people need to think about what car is. But that's it. Therein lies the problem, right? Because someone can say, oh, I think car looks like this. And someone can say, oh, I think car has a bed in the back. That's a truck, but it's kind of like a car. Another person might say, oh, it's got big windows and it's got like really big tires. And like, nope, that's a bus. But like, that's the problem, right? But the team shared mental model, everyone needs to share the same vision of what a car is. Just like if a team mental model for games is like, how does everyone want to play this map together? How does everyone want to play this position together? Or how does everyone expect me to play my position in this game from this comp? You know? So that's where it is. But the way that you teach this is everyone needs to agree what a car looks like. Everyone needs to understand the role of what car is. Everyone needs to understand the function of what car is. Because if we can create this understanding, then we can be very specific in the types of communication we need to use to describe car, to say where car is going, to say how I feel about car, to say how successful car is. But we need to share what the car looks like first, or what defined car is, then we can all play together. Then why I'm linking this to cognitive battery is because the reason I'm linking like mental model to cognitive battery. There it is. Okay, the reason why I'm linking shared mental model with cognitive battery is because learning takes energy. Right? You yourself only have so much energy. It's finite. It is not unlimited resource. So first, it takes cognitive battery for you to learn or have or make your own mental model of a car. Then it takes cognitive energy, or it takes energy from this battery to learn the mental model altogether. But what also takes energy from the cognitive battery is focusing on other things, like the noise of the crowd, like the pressure of the game, like how it feels to get shot in the face. All these kinds of things take energy from the cognitive battery. But if you have more experience, if you have more knowledge, if you have more time in the game, you can become more efficient with your cognitive battery, because you don't need to focus on certain things because it's already practice. It's already automatic. It's already in there where you don't need to think about it. So for example, plays or positions or where enemies could be. Like when you think about it or you play enough, then you don't need to think about those things and you can manage others. Like, I don't know, being on stage or what people are typing about you or whatever. So you get to steward how you want to use this energy from this battery. That's how it makes sense to me. But yeah, I like this article. I think this is really, really helpful. I think it's really funny because I think I've also noticed the same thing in teams in general that are developing versus pro teams. Like, I do agree. I think pro teams are much more objective. I think pro teams are much more action focused. At a certain point, the feelings don't really matter for pro teams because you just have to do it because we're here to win. Versus I think when players are developing or coming up with their non-experts, I think they do get hung up on their own feelings. I do think they get hung up on the state of the game or the pressure of the game much more than I'd say pros do. I'm not saying that pros do not feel the pressure. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying that pros are able to manage the pressure a little bit better than non-pros. And I think that is simply because of their experience in the game, of the arena, of dealing with fans, all these types of things. And so because they're used to that and used to the environment, they don't need to think about that, thus preserving their cognitive battery, making it more efficient to speak and think and act together. Now, there's other things that I think can jeopardize that. What I'm thinking about is like if players don't have the same level of knowledge or mechanical ability, then there can be conflicts. I think when players it's another thing that teams do. Oh, I think another thing too that gets in the way is like if I like you on the team and team relationship, which can affect all these types of act statements or emotional statements or non-statements or whatever. Like I think relationship is a really big factor in this that they didn't really talk about. Because I think if you don't have a good relationship with your team, maybe that it's going to affect how often and frequent and the types of messages that you send to the team. Or maybe if you don't like somebody, then if they do something wrong or stupid, you're just going to write them off instead of trying to communicate with them what you want them to do instead of dying, you know? So I do think that they did leave out relationship. They did leave out tone. There's a lot of other things in communication, just the information packed into it or words packed into it or the speed in which you communicate it. So I do think that this is an awesome study. At the same time, I do think that there are amazing other studies that can come from this, especially looking at other parts of communication, especially in esports, because you lose a lot of communication, like, I don't know, physicality, tone, observable stuff, you know? But that's where I'm going to leave it, man. That is where I'm going to leave it. All right. Perfect. Shorter stream today, but I'm so glad that we got to talk about all the stuff. So, thanks so much for hanging out and coming to talk with me. And Raisin Val, thanks for the follow, baby. Thanks for coming out and hanging out for a little while. I hope you learned something. But if I was going to take some nuggies away from this, man, I think the first is manage your emotions. Learn the game. Be smart. I think that all affects your ability to communicate clearly and to tell you to tell your team what you want, to tell your team what you see, to tell your team how to play best with you, for you, all those things. I do think that comes from mastering your one position or even mastering your mind of your emotions or your stress and how you see and understand those things. Because if we can be more efficient at using or allocating energy and resources from our cognitive batteries to different parts of your brain, or sorry, not parts of your brain, but different tasks allocated from your brain from emotional regulation, stress management, planning, strategy, being in the present moment, all these things, then the better your comms will get. I think comms, sure, you can focus on being better at your comms and how to package your comms. But I think even before comms comes your knowledge, comes your experience, comes your thoughts. So you can focus on that. And then I think also your comms will improve. So, sick. All right, friends. Well, I hope you have a awesome weekend. I'll be back on Tuesday at 6 p.m. PST to talk stories, to read something, to give you more nuggies in esports and psychology. All right, friends. Well, as always, my name is Dr. Ryan Terrell, your Psych Sensei. Please visit my website, psychsensei.com, if you want to get better at your games or get better as a person. And while you're there, get all the resources from my Discord, my LinkedIn, my TikTok, my YouTube, my Facebook, my Instagram. All of it there can be found on my website, psychsensei.com. All right, friends. Take it easy. Pieces. Chill. Love ya. Remember, stronger mental wins, and